You guys remember the Crystal Ball interview where he actually said, mid-genocide, with Gaza looking the way it does, that Israel sends door knockers to the roofs of Palestinians' home, basically non-explosive projectiles that they fire at a house to warn them hours in advance that they're about to bomb it. He actually tried to convince us, amidst what we're all seeing with our own two eyes, that Israel is warning Palestinians hours in advance of bombing their homes when Gaza looks like a fucking parking lot. He actually wanted us to believe that. Turns out they discontinued that practice 13 or 14 years ago, 2008 or 2009. I forget the exact year. So he is not a credible person at the end of the day. And it's too bad, because I do think our food is poison. I do think if he had his way, he would not allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise on TV, which not only would be good for public health, but it would be good for anti-corruption measures, because then you would have a media that's a little more autonomous than it is now, at least, because they wouldn't be dominated by pharma advertising money. So, like, there are things that if he were to be confirmed, and I think it's better than 50-50 he will be confirmed, not a sure thing, but better than 50-50. I think there are things he could do that would be, on a whole, to the benefit of people. But ultimately, he is a psychopathic, degenerate liar. And you can't really say a person who is that brazenly dishonest is fit for a position like that. Like, I wish I didn't feel that way. Is he worse? Is he worse than the average corrupt, goon that would be in that office? No.
That's what I was going to say.
No. But like, I mean, the guy is not a credible guy. I'm sorry. He's just not.
Well,
he's just
and
not.
I think that, and I know you got to go shortly, so
Sorry.
I think that this is the perfect story to conclude with. Obviously, you being Jewish from New York, Jen Jewish from Florida. I think that this is something that really hits home because you were raised in this environment, and knowing that RFK has been such a toady for whether, as you have, how do you, please, Jen, how do you so eloquently describe RFK with Rabbi Shmuley?
Said what? That he's up his, that he's up his tuchus?
Yeah, there you go.
Very much so. And of course, there has now been rumblings, and we are going to have on an author by the name of Ken McCarthy very soon, who wrote a book regarding RFK and JFK's determination in the early 1960s to have AIPAC registered as a foreign agent. And we all know what ended up happening as a result. So this is a clip that came out the other day. And I think it's very telling when you look at RFK Jr. and how absolutely in the tank he is on issue. Again, there are issues that I think he could do well on, but we cannot deny that maybe the biggest reason he didn't pick up the real kind of traction he could have was because of how married to the Israel cause that he was.
Mossad killed Kennedy because they were so upset over what he did to Ben-Gurion. There's a very surprising series of letters between Kennedy and David Ben-Gurion, not only the premier of Israel, but the founder of Israel, in which they're very angry letters, in which Kennedy is saying to Ben-Gurion, I'm killing myself trying to get a nuclear test ban treaty. I've even got de Gaulle on board, and that's impossible. And you keep testing in Dimona. You've got to stop. And Ben-Gurion, thank you, in so many words says, it's easy for you to say sitting in Hyannisport. I'm sitting with the Arabs all around me, and you want me to give up nuclear testing. And Kennedy threatens him. And he threatens him in such a way that Ben-Gurion resigned. And I will tell you that I found articles, not in any crackpot publications, but in very sophisticated publications saying, forget Lyndon Johnson, forget the CIA, forget Fidel Castro. The Mossad killed Kennedy because they were so upset over what he did to Ben-Gurion.
Is that really a stretch?
No, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, I think one thing we've learned about Israel, if we hadn't learned it already, is that you could really put nothing past them. My theory about Kennedy was always that, the CIA tried to bait him into a ground invasion of Cuba with the Bay of Pigs, that they basically knew that was going to be a failure, and they were betting on the fact that Kennedy would have to double down and invade Cuba to get the people out who were stuck there. And when he didn't do that at great political cost to himself, they realized, oh shit, this guy is out of our control. He has to go, right? I think they thought they were going to be able to trick him and bait him into a ground war there. And when he defied them, they're like, because his poll numbers took a massive hit, his first term president, and he took responsibility for that failure and didn't try to save face by going to war. And I think once they realized this guy is not going to double down and give us the war we want, even when we fuck him as hard as we have with this quagmire, I think that's always been my theory of things. But certainly, I mean, you could never put anything past the Israeli state for sure.
Jen?
I don't know. Well, I think any of those things is possible, but I still, to me, think that Kennedy getting killed is more linked to him dismissing Alan Dulles, and more linked to what he was trying to do in unraveling the deep state. And I think that the Dulles brothers were not having it, and their people. That's what I think. But I wouldn't, again, their people also could have easily been the Mossad. For all I know, everybody was working together. There were multiple motives, is the thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's so hard to tell where American interests and an Israeli interest begin and vice versa.
Well, there is no question that if there was a distinct difference between JFK and LBJ, is that JFK was a friend to Israel, but was not pro-Israel. And he understood the plight of the Palestinian people probably better than most. There's so many things that Jack was right about that comes out years later. But if there is one thing that cannot be denied, is just how bad of not just a president, but a human being LBJ really was, and how everything that Jack had worked towards, especially with registering the Israel lobby as a foreign agent, got completely reversed within a matter of weeks.
Hey, there are people who insist LBJ had him whacked. That he was in on it. Yeah.
That's part of it. And that's just Occam's razor. You always look at the persons who have the most to gain from any scenario, right? Like, it makes the most sense. And I certainly don't think he was an innocent bystander in it. Let's just say
the best case against LBJ is that it's been reported in numerous publications that JFK was going to drop him from the ticket in 1964. And so if that is the case, and knowing who LBJ was, how he operated, I mean, it's like a known thing that the guy had a hitman, for God's sake. I mean,
you say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, you have often said that, like, Queen Elizabeth lasted as long as she did because she sometimes had to take care of business. Yes. And maybe that is just kind of what ultimately ends up happening with a lot of people in positions of power, is that they are willing to go that far. And I'm not saying that Bernie needed to go that far, but when push came to shove and Bernie had to make a decision as to whether he would have allowed himself to become a truly marked man, he wasn't willing to go there in a way that other people in yesteryear, like JFK and RFK and MLK, were willing to do.